Are you in trauma?
Love?
Trauma. That is the question.
Potty, she talking naughty. Here to help your trouble, she don't judge nobody. Even if you're not at your top and it's a lie, she try to make you see a different train of thought.
So, are you in a loving, romantic relationship, or are you in a trauma bond? And many of us who come from traumatic beginnings might not know the difference between the two. Because if we've got a fucking shitty foundation, then how the motherfucker are we supposed to build something healthy? Because nothing like that was modeled to us. So, just saying, just throwing it out there. So if you watched my relationship video, 3 toxic traits and 3 healthy traits, you might remember how I talked about that we as a culture romanticize certain toxic traits in relationships. Like some of my most favoritist relationships in film and TV are not the healthiest relationships. So for example, Jax and Tara from Sons of Anarchy, I'm like so in love with their relationship, except when you really look at it, it's not very healthy, is it? So a whole bunch of people reached out and they were asking me questions about different traits in their relationships and whether they're toxic or not. And so there seems to be a fair bit of confusion in certain cases. And so I thought, well, perfect. I can add this to my library of relationship videos and let's talk about what the fuck a trauma bond even is. So just so everybody knows out there, trauma bonding can happen in any kind of a relationship. It doesn't have to just be romantic. It can be between parent and child, it can be in a friendship, it can be with your boss or coworkers. And being that we are creatures of habit, if you see trauma bonding in one relationship, you're gonna probably see it in a whole bunch of other relationships. So trauma bonds are relationships where there's a huge power imbalance and a cycle of abuse. These predatory power dynamics can be found between like kidnapper and hostage, so like Stockholm Syndrome is a type of trauma bonding, cult leader and follower, adult and child. So essentially they can be found in any type of a relationship. Let's look at the ground zero of trauma bonding, and that is, are you ready for it? Emotional addiction. What? Yeah, it's addiction. And it's biological. So if you're a person that's never had a pervasive relationship like this in your life and you're seeing a friend or a family member or fucking somebody on TV or whatever and you're saying, what the fuck, why can't that person just leave that shitty ass relationship? You know, it's such a common thing that we hear, why can't they just leave? Well, here's why, and it's not because they're weak. P.S. Don't be so judgy. So in these types of relationships, we have all these chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters and all this shit is like fucking coursing through our bodies. And they don't always feel good. And that's confusing because we normally associate addiction to things that feel good, like drugs or booze or shopping. But the thing is, all of these feelings and all of these chemicals, we get used to them. Just like how I mentioned in my last video about loneliness, when we have adrenaline shooting into our body from fight or flight, that adrenaline is a chemical and we can become addicted to it. So same thing here. So things like fear and excitement and rejection and anxiety all can become addictive to us and are all signs of a trauma bond found together in a relationship. Here are some of the traits that you're going to find in a trauma bond. Number 1, the running and chasing dynamic. One person is backing away and the other one is chasing them within the relationship. So it's like the love and hate dynamic. Big high ups and super low lows, like a fucking roller coaster all the goddamn time. You're going to find all sorts of risky and impulsive behavior within this dynamic. Number 2, lack of boundaries. So if they even exist at all, they're not fucking very clear. Like, you know, the lines are blurred. So that can be like physical boundaries in terms of how much time you're spending together every single fucking waking moment, and emotional boundaries, you know, that roller coaster of the ups and downs, you know, when one person's feelings affects everybody's fucking feelings. Codependency. Number 3, you're gonna find a lack of emotional depth in these relationships. And what I mean by that is that you're not gonna have a full spectrum of emotions. It's really only the addictive emotions that I mentioned earlier, like fear and excitement and rejection and anxiety and like angst. And you know, at the end of the day, in these relationships, both parties aren't being authentic. They're hiding parts of themselves because they don't feel safe. that relationship isn't a safe place for them. So how do you know? How do you know if you're in a trauma bond and shit is abusive in your relationship? I shall give you some examples. Your trauma bond / abuser might present as super charming and really charismatic. They might love bomb the motherfuck out of you, especially at the beginning. And what that looks like is compliments, lots of presents, constant communication, talking about fate and destiny, and y'all were meant to be together, like super early in the relationship. There might be a whole bunch of emotional unpredictability, so they could be oscillating between this mood and this mood, this mood and this mood. And then they might blame you for those mood swings. They might slowly be isolating you away from your family and friends. You might be seeing huge lack of follow through on promises, including treating you better. And you might find yourself, as this trauma bond partner, making excuses for their bad behavior or diminishing and dismissing them, minimizing it. You might find yourself becoming dependent on substances to cope or numb out all the shit that's going on. You might even start to normalize this behavior as a way to cope and dissociate and numb out from it. Like become apathetic to the fact that it's happening. You might be changing your behavior and like walking on eggshells and to avoid setting them off. And you might be lying to your family and friends about how bad things really are. So if anyone is going through this kind of a relationship, if you have this dynamic in your life, I am so sorry that you're going through this. I can resonate and relate to what you're going through because it was in my family, and then I had friendships and romantic relationships like this. So I certainly don't know your particular circumstances, but I have absolutely been there, and I know how hard it is. And I'm just so sorry that this is your reality and you don't feel safe in this relationship and you're thinking about leaving this relationship. I really want to encourage you to do it in a safe way. There are tons of resources available to you. Crisis hotlines and abuse shelters. There's job training, legal services, and childcare. Reach out. I will have a whole bunch of resources listed in the description box below. A few things to remember. They're really kind of like truth bombs, unpopular opinions, shit that people don't really like to hear. Mama say it anyways. Number 1, if you're hoping that your abuser will change, they won't. It's gonna keep happening because these are people who are like deeply, deeply wounded. Change can only happen if they're willing to take full responsibility and accountability, seek professional help for like, not 2 or 3 sessions at a time, like commit to that shit. And if they stop blaming everything and everyone, including you, for their shit. Number 2, if you're thinking that you can help your partner, bro, that shit is out of your fucking pay grade, okay? Okay, but in all seriousness, this is something that you are unequipped to be able to deal with because it's not your profession and you're too close to the situation to even be able to help because you're in it. And it makes sense that you want to. Of course, we want to help the people that we love. But at the end of the day, they are literally the only ones that can make this decision and do this work. And another thing I have to mention is that you trying to help them actually enables their shit behavior. Number 3. If your partner promises to change, when they're faced with consequences, they might beg for your forgiveness, they might make all sorts of promises that they'll never do it again, that they're gonna be different, and they might truly mean it in that moment. But ultimately, they're gonna say and do whatever they need to do to get you back under their control. So as soon as they know you're not gonna leave, all that shit is gonna motherfucking start again, and usually pretty fucking quickly. Number 4. I've gotten way overly dramatic with these numbers, but just roll with it. I don't know, I do. Welcome to my ADD life. If your partner's in therapy, great. This is a good thing, but I just gotta put it out there that first of all, there's no guarantee that they're gonna change. Tons of abusers go through therapy and like anger management and still continue their controlling and abusive behavior. If your partner stops minimizing their behavior and stops making excuses for it, this is a really good sign. But ultimately, you need to make a decision based on who they are today, not who you'll hope they'll become later. So I have a few things to tell you to fucking remember because they're important things to remember. And I know for sure that most of the time you are not feeling these things. You don't believe these things are true. And I'm here to tell you that they are motherfucking true. It's not your fault. You are not to blame for being mistreated in any way. You are not weak. You are not stupid. You do deserve better, even though the messaging that you've been getting has been things like you're unlovable or you're worthless or whatever it sounds like. You deserve to be treated with respect. You have nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed by. You deserve a happy and safe life, as do your children if there are children in the picture. You are absolutely not alone. There are people waiting to help you. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Trauma bonds are a really big topic. This is just scratching the surface of the whole thing. If you want to hear more about trauma bonding, please put it in the comments below. I want to hear about your experiences. Have you been in a relationship like this? Are you in one now? If you have been in a relationship like this and are no longer in a relationship like this, talk about what got you out. What got you to the point that you were ready to leave and you got the fuck out. I want to know. Put it in the comments. Thank you so much. That's it. That's all I have to say about that right now. I mean, I have a lot to say about everything all the time, but for now, that's it. So thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it valuable, I want you to hit that like button. I definitely want you to subscribe. I really want you to send it to someone who you feel it will be valuable to. On that fancy sharing note, I shall bid you adieu, and I shall see you next Friday, same bat time, same bat channel, to discuss more things about mental health and all the different ways that we can unfuck ourselves to have a fucking awesome life. Love you guys. Bye.